Yes, we thought that as this event is of such global importance and significance, that it would be good for us to frame our meditation period today with a reflection created by these events and our fears for the future, and maybe asking a very simple, basic question. And maybe this is one of the questions of greatest importance in our world today, and that is, does meditation make a difference? I was speaking 2 days ago with Albert and Maria Sokova, who are a young couple who are our WCCM coordinators in Lviv in the Ukraine. And they were very anxious. It was the day before the invasion. And they and their families, and they were already seeing a lot of people coming from the eastern part of the country. And I just felt, it makes it so much more real when you are not just reading about these events, but you're close to people who are experiencing them and the fears and the disruption. And we were talking about a day of meditation that they are organizing on March the 26th. And we came to the conclusion that we would make this on day of retreat, of meditation, a global day for all our community. And I'd like to invite all of you to join in a small part of that day in solidarity with the Ukrainians. And they, I know, value very deeply, as we all do when we're in a crisis, when we're frightened, when we're in danger. We just appreciate the simple, friendly touch of a human hand and expression of kindness and solidarity. But of course, there's also the global significance of it all. And I think a question about the nature of consciousness itself in our modern world. Given the extent, the scale of the problems, the crises that we face, not only at the political level, but of course at the environmental level, the social level, financial, economic. Maybe consciousness is what we should be focusing on. When a huge iceberg breaks off from a glacier, it's a terrible sight. You just look at it and just feel this immense event of nature. But it's also a reminder that there's something behind it, that all major events have deep causes at many levels. Behind that huge iceberg collapsing is global warming. And what is the cause of that global warming? The cruel and barbaric invasion of the Ukraine, which is really, when I heard about it, and I'm sure you felt the same, you just feel a physical nausea in your stomach. It's so unnecessary. It's so pointless. It's so insane and absurd. And it is also, of course, it's a political collapse of that delicate balance that civilization at a global level needs. Not only democracy, but civilization of any kind needs constantly to protect certain essential values of truth and the absurd lies that are used to justify this invasion just bewilder the mind and show us how irrational it is. It's like arguing with, well, somebody who has lost touch with reality. And we glimpse, I think, as people did when Hitler invaded Poland in 1939, we glimpse what a delicate balance human life and human society is poised on. And when Hitler invaded Poland, he triggered World War II. 50 to 80 million people were killed, and 30 to 50 million civilians, 13 to 20 million who died from war-related diseases or famine. The scale is bewildering. Hundreds of millions of traumatized people, individuals, people like Albert and Maria and their families, traumatized, and passing on this trauma, the effects of that trauma, to their children and grandchildren. As meditators, I think we need to confront both the political and the huge scale and the danger and the destructiveness of this Russian invasion or President Putin's decision, and to take time to feel something deeper than that nausea and shock, to feel the deeper level of consciousness that connects us to all of those who will be suffering that trauma, to feel a unified consciousness. This is our theme for this year, and we're living it now. This isn't abstract. This is exactly why this theme, this topic, this idea is so important, I think, for us to reflect on, because it can change events, can change the course of history if we break into that consciousness. So Ukraine is also a manifestation of an underlying crisis. Just as the iceberg reflects global warming, so the Ukraine, apart from its own unique tragedy, reflects something that is disturbingly wrong in human consciousness today. And you could say that it's the loss of our capacity to use thought wisely, even to think intelligently. Because an event like this, and the reasons that are being given, the ludicrous reasons that are being given to justify it, it just shows a collapse of the power to think, the human power to be conscious. And it shows what happens when we are deceived by our own self-deceptions. And we can see this at a personal level in our relationships, in our families, in our companies, in our politics, on a lesser scale. How our capacity to see things clearly and to act humanely is destroyed by self-deception. And it makes us incapable of seeing the truth or telling the truth. This is the nightmare. It's like a Kafka-esque nightmare, in fact. And it also shows us how vital it is for us to understand the nature of dialogue. And I think meditation protects our capacity for dialogue, because dialogue is more than discussion. It's more than just sitting down and exchanging ideas and opinions and negotiating. The word dialogue means, because in two parts, dia, which means going through, and logos, which means thought or consciousness or wisdom. So dialogue between, even within ourselves, we can be in dialogue with ourselves in this sense. But dialogue with others means that we go with them through the crisis, the conflict, the polarization, the violence, the stupidity, the self-deceptions. We can go together through that into a new vision of reality, into a new perception. And this dialogue of this kind doesn't rely only upon the kind of knowledge that we gain from statistics and economic forecasts and even political skills. This comes from a different kind of knowledge that we could call a tacit knowledge. I mean, it's basically the kind of knowledge that we all have that enables us to ride a bike or to have a shower in the morning. This is knowledge that is just part of us. We don't even have to think about it. It's a kind of bodily knowledge. But there's a deeper kind of tacit knowledge. And the word tacit means silent. It means you know it, but you can't express it. And you know it when you're with somebody else who knows it, but you may not be able to put it into words. And this is the tacit knowledge that we discover in ourselves and among ourselves in meditation. And it's this silent knowledge that gives us our capacity for dialogue. And dialogue changes the way the mind thinks and the way we feel, because it shatters self-deception. It frees us from that monocular, self-centered view of reality, the isolation and the monomania of the despot, of the tyrant. But also, it exposes why Hitler was elected by a great majority, I think. Why it is so easy for collective consciousness to be hijacked, manipulated and controlled and eventually oppressed by individuals and their coterie, their immediate supporters, whose future depends and their wealth depends upon these despotic individuals. So it's not enough for us to condemn this invasion. I think as meditators, we want to make a difference, to serve others, to help them to flourish. It's not enough to condemn. We have to understand why this piece of the iceberg has fallen off. And to understand what are the causes of this tragedy. So, does meditation make a difference? If we say no, not really, let's be practical about it. You know, meditation helps me to be more peaceful and calm, and I love my meditation, but it doesn't make any difference to what's happening in Kiev, in Ukraine at the moment. Then I think we are deceiving ourselves, because we are saying that we don't know this silent knowledge, which is deeper than me as an individual, or as a nationality, or as a religious person. We're deceiving ourselves. We're getting stuck in our ego consciousness. But if we say yes maybe it does make a difference, although I may not be able to say exactly how, but it must make a difference because we feel connected through meditation, through this tacit, silent knowledge with other people, even with the tyrants and the madmen who are acting in their own self-deception. We can feel connected. Condemnation isn't enough. We can say, yes, it makes a difference, because the clarity of consciousness that we come to in meditation challenges at the deepest level, the most peaceful level. And it shows us that, challenges that self-deception and that insanity. And it shows us the pure nature of human consciousness. So I think, obviously, we have to solve a problem, but it's more important to change the way we see and understand and deal with situations like this, seeing into the underlying deep causes and how we and others can contribute that perception. And it takes time, stillness, dialogue to be able to allow that new perception to surface and to break through. And then it becomes contagious. You can communicate anger, nationalism, violence, pride, greed. All of that can be communicated very quickly, like a virus. But we can also spread another way of seeing, which is what I mean by our unified consciousness. And even to glimpse that for a moment in our meditation, and then seeing that it carries over into our lives, we can lay down the burden of hate, which was an expression by an Afro-American politician some time ago, to lay down the burden of hate, of competitiveness, of greed, of fear, of all the things that lead us into this kind of crisis that we're facing now. So I think that's the question. How do we understand? And we, each of us, need to try to understand it for ourselves and then to share that understanding with each other. How do we understand why meditation makes a difference?